Welcome to a special episode of Fascism on Film. I'm James Kent, and along with me is Teal Minton.
Hello, how are you?
We have not yet. We're a little delayed in starting our next season, season 3. But occasionally a movie comes up that's offered. It's sort of, more of a modern film that serves as an example of some of the things that we're talking about in Fascism on Film. And we have such a case now, and we thought maybe it would be a good time to discuss this documentary that came out called Melania. I think maybe a few of you have heard of this film.
Yeah, and even using the word documentary in this sense is weird because it's, how often does the subject of a documentary produce the documentary? And outside of maybe music documentaries, which are really just kind of an ad for the band, and this is really more of a advertisement, music video, infomercial, all sorts of, it's a hodgepodge of genres.
Believe it or not, the two of us have seen it. Maybe we've seen it, so you don't have to. We're going to talk about it. And it is strange because I will tell you I was not very curious. I was certainly not going to see this film in the theater. And the only reason that I watched this movie at all, because I kind of stay away from this particular administration in all facets and forms, is because we thought, well, we need to take a peek, because if we're talking about movies that have to do with fascism, maybe it's not overt fascism, but we had a hunch that perhaps there's a propagandist angle. And when an administration that seems to have made no bones in the past year plus of coming out and saying kind of like, hey, we're fascists and we're okay with that. I mean, they actually are against anti-fascism.
Anti-fascism, yeah.
They call them terrorist groups. And, and everything that we've seen kind of hits Paxton's tenets of fascism right on the nose. And then, of course, just in recent weeks, as this is being recorded, we, for some reason, decided to go to war with Iran. And
yeah.
That's kind of going into the extremes of fascism, where we've decided that I don't know if it's land expansion or just showing our might. I'm not sure what it is, but
well, it's radicalization to war is what Paxton would say, that this is kind of the final stage, is endless war, internal cleansing and external expansion. And it's about just dominating through military force. And so part of it is just the show of that.
Yeah, you made a point there, because that's what I was kind of thinking, is that, see, what happens is when you go in and you kidnap a leader of another country, and then you go in and you bomb and murder the leader of another country, what you're kind of saying to the rest of the world is, well, don't mess with us, because if you get out of line or don't agree with what we're doing or even help us, we might just do this to you.
Exactly. So it's a show of force and a show of dominance, and it's almost more important that it show those things than it actually accomplish any military or political goals. It's really just the action is in itself the end.
Of course, this is not where maybe we'll get into this stuff, but it's sort of background, because we have this documentary called Melania, which is, I guess, about the First Lady, Melania Trump. And I will have to admit that I spent zero time learning about what this documentary was ahead of time. I guess I was misled, or I just assumed if you call the documentary Melania, that what I thought we were going to get was a propagandist sort of sanitized version of Melania Trump's story, that she would sell herself a certain way. And we were going to be getting the real Melania Trump, but that it would be kind of laughable because it really wasn't going to be, we could kind of see through the lies. And I guess that was my big surprise, is that this movie had nothing to do with that. Instead,
nothing to do with that. Nothing.
Instead, it was technically a documentary in the sense that, if we look at some of the documentarians like a Fred Wiseman who just passed, or if we looked at a D.A. Pennebaker, they made these sort of fly on the wall documentaries where maybe they're focusing on a moment. And in that sense, I guess that's what this is. It's 20-day period leading up to and including the inauguration, second term of Donald Trump.
It's interesting that you mentioned Pennebaker because there was a short film he made called A Wedding, and it's about this woman getting ready for a wedding, and all the getting the dress ready and talking to people, and it's Timothy Leary's wedding. The movie ends when she leaves the room to go out to the wedding. So it's just her preparing for it. And it really made me think of this film too, because this is essentially preparing for an event. But in that film, it was this verite fly on the wall, and you really got a sense of the character and all the other people who were interacting with her. And it had that fly on the wall sense that we're just observing this. But the Melania movie steps over that line of observation into active participation in what's going on.
We talk about overproduced. The movie itself cost millions to make. Then there was a bidding war, which, let's face it, it wasn't really a bidding war.
Well, no.
It was all these media conglomerates seeing how much they could spend to, get his favor.
Yeah, it's basically a bribe.
And Amazon won the most, where they bid $40 million for this. And then I think they put in $30 million for post-production and clearly music rights, because there's all of this music that would cost any other film millions. And I say this music because throughout this episode, we are going to talk about the music, because to me, it was fascinating. It was bizarre. It was obscene. And I can't help but wonder if there weren't some sort of weird inside jokes going on at Melania's expense, although she supposedly approved of all the music used in the movie.
Obscene is, I think, the right word for a lot of different aspects of this movie, but definitely the music. Right from the beginning, I caught up onto that, and I thought, okay, James is going to want to talk about the music because it's bizarre. It's a number of like classic rock and pop songs that are all well known, and it leans into sort of the music video aspect of that. There's so many shots of her getting in and out of cars and close-ups on her heels, and it's all done in this sort of flashy MTV kind of style that fits right in with the music.
I would guess, I could be wrong, I probably watch a lot more reality television than you do. And I probably watched a lot more of these kind of what happens today with these Netflix sort of crime documentaries than you do.
Yes.
And there are tropes and trends that today's documentaries use, and this employs all of them. And a couple of things that are interesting. And I say interesting not necessarily in a good way, but they're interesting from a filmmaking choice, is that the film is shot 2:3:5 to 1. And you don't get a lot of documentaries shot as a widescreen movie. That's first of all. But just because it's shot widescreen, that doesn't make it worthy of being put in cinemas. And this certainly does not feel like it should have ever been in any kind of it's more of like, I feel like a travelogue for a Lifetime or a Bravo channel. It's got like 50,000 cameras. They never stop moving, and there's drones, and it's like you can't even catch up with the action because the camera never sits still, and then it goes and edits to another moving camera shot.
Constant.
Like, you'd like to think, if you're breaking it down from a filmmaking standpoint, that there's got to be a point to all of this, but you realize that you're not in the hands of a great filmmaker. You're in the hands of Brett Ratner, a disgraced filmmaker who was never great to begin with.
Yeah, was always terrible.
But, he was able to put together some action movies and stuff. And so, until his behavior got exposed in the Me Too era and his career was torpedoed, he did get a lot of work.
Yeah.
So this is sort of his comeback, and it's, I think, ironic and interesting because this, while was filmed during the inauguration period, we'll call it, we have time to reflect on the past year, and you can't help through the entire movie while you're watching this think about what has happened since this documentary that runs counter to some of the things being propagated and said in this film.
Yeah, there's a high level of hypocrisy here, but also you mentioned like the war in Iran now. You can't watch this film without thinking about that, even though it's a year later. You have to think about it colors the entire experience thinking about what's gone on the last year since the inauguration.
Well, it would be kind of like watching when we watched Triumph of the Will, right? The speeches that were being given at the time, they spoke about one thing, and some of that was also what happened and transpired, but they also kind of tried to say that they were peaceful, etc.,
Yes.
when all they were ready to do was create war.
Yeah, and so the huge amount of hypocrisy in this film too, with all this, America is the greatest country, and we're here serving our country, and I'm an immigrant, and isn't it great that immigrants are part of America? There's a lot of sort of idealism that really is just not is belied by the reality of what this administration does.
It doesn't matter what side of the fence that you fall on, right, politically, whether you were a supporter of Trump
Yeah,
or you're not. And so when you watch something like this, I would say a lot of non-supporters would never even watch this. So it's really catering to the supporters. And if you're a supporter and you watch this, all you've been told by this administration is that immigrants need to go, and you're supposed to root on ICE for brutally taking people out of their home and removing children away from their parents. We've seen American citizens now killed.
yeah.
And so everything that Melania is saying in this movie, and it's not throughout, it's just a few areas, it doesn't ring true. Now, again, this is a movie about her, not necessarily her husband and his actions, but it rings such a false note that it's hard to watch and hear those scenes without almost laughing out loud. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, laughter is, I think, definitely a response. But the other thing is, you mentioned Triumph of the Will, and there's this feeling I get when I watch Nazi propaganda, which is this kind of sickening feeling of I shouldn't be looking at this. This is evil. There's something wrong here, deeply morally and spiritually wrong here. And I got that same feeling immediately from this movie that I was watching some sort of something deeply evil and propagandistic and in service of real evil. And so I just felt sick and sort of traumatized by this entire movie.
This isn't a film you watch for enjoyment at all.
No, no,
Morbid
no.
curiosity, it's kind of like, when there's a car accident on the road,
Yeah.
the morbid curiosity is that as much as you don't want to see something really awful, you can't help but look. Well, this is more like you're trapped in the accident and you're hoping that the jaws of life free you from the car first before you die and perish. And that's what it felt like.
And you really are trapped there for an hour and 44 minutes. I mean, if this had been a 10-minute film, it could have accomplished everything it set out to accomplish, and still, it's just so long. And there's no structure to the narrative whatsoever. There's no story being told. It's just endless scenes of looking at place settings and adjusting hatbands.
If the idea is to sell opulence and American success somehow, right? If this is like a
Yeah,
success story and this is what you should strive to achieve, and it's being pushed at supporters who, by and large, right, are not very wealthy, I would say, in this
yeah,
country, and that they're looking for a dream, it comes off really weird because I watched the proceedings and I see this parade of like cars, these black SUVs that are like taking her from this Mar-a-Lago to the airport to New York City to her penthouse in Trump Tower to eventually these places in DC where you stay before you become president again. And every step you feel like she's a prisoner in a weird way.
yeah.
And you go to this Trump Tower, oh my God, this scene, she comes in to her apartment, and it's just ridiculous. And who would want to live like it's so tacky with all this
It's so
gold and
tacky. The gold is I hate to use the phrase, but there's just something real low class about the whole thing.
well, there's like the idea of living wealthy, and then there's this notion of these wealthy people who feel like they must live this like this show to show like look at how important and wealthy, as if they are some kind of American royalty.
Yes, and they have their house decorated with just all these little frilly gold things and massive picture frames and statues and just gold everywhere. I mean, I've seen pictures of them before in the penthouse and stuff, but this movie, the amount of gold that I've seen in pictures doesn't do justice to what is comes across in this movie. It's just completely filled to the gills with gold.
She's in this apartment, and it's overlooking Central Park, and you see what pretty stunning vistas. But all I could think of is that, and you don't hear the sound of the outside world, so it's like it's all soundproofed and everything. You get this feeling like it is a weird kind of opulent prison that she's
Yeah.
locked into, and it doesn't have any appeal, and it doesn't let your imagination go, "Oh, I wish I could be this rich." Instead, I'm like, I kind of like never want to be this wealthy.
That's funny because sometimes in like rock star documentaries, you do think, oh, it would be fun to be that rich. She doesn't have any interest in anything other than these really specific and commanding preferences for certain fashion or aesthetic things. And she just tortures everyone who works for her. All the staff in this movie look terrified. Especially when Trump is around, but they all look like they're just about to get yelled at and are terrified about it. And yeah, so she just has the most trivial concerns possible, and because she is boring, the movie ends up being boring.
She's not a very interesting person. And of course, look, I'm just going to be very blunt that she's from Slovenia. She has a very, very thick accent. And if she was not married to Donald Trump and she was somebody else who was not wealthy or important, the sad reality is she'd be a target of ICE. And I'm not making a joke here.
Hmm.
She's constantly a reminder because she narrates her own documentary, and
Yeah,
her accent is very thick. And you are completely reminded at all times that she is an immigrant who's benefited from her connection to wealthy people, because there are other
yeah.
immigrants who are being carted away who are just like her. And it doesn't seem fair. So when you're watching this documentary, your brain is doing this thing where, again, a good propagandist movie doesn't want you to be thinking of those things. And this movie, you can't stop but thinking about it.
You can't and there is a moment with one of her workers who is,
Who's from Laos?
yes, who's also an immigrant, and it's supposed to be this little, "Look how much I care about America and the people who care about the American dream," and she does this also with some children's or foster family charity that she has. It's sort of like, let's humanize her a little bit by showing her doing stuff for her charities. But the most she does is have a really vapid conference call with someone about it. And she doesn't seem to have any real interest in any of that. It's just something plugged in there to try to humanize her.
Yeah, and it's very hard to humanize her in this. Now, I want to go back to the music for a second. When you have music, and you had mentioned, like music videos, and I think the reason why you did is that a lot of times you had these music videos which told like a very short story, and it was really
Yeah.
about glitz and gloss, and it didn't really have any meaning behind the songs. And in this case, you feel a lot of times that there is no meaning behind the use of the song. It's done because someone thought, this sounds cool. And the very
Yes.
first example of that is the first piece of music that's over the soundtrack. They use the Rolling Stones' Give Me Shelter. And
Yes.
it already set me off because I'm like, I don't think that these people have ever listened to the lyrics of Give Me Shelter and have no idea that the background singer is singing rape and murder.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing that and I'm thinking, this is like it's like a weird, twisted, subversive thing to say that we get it. We know what this administration is about. We know about the Epstein files. We know about the rapes. And guess what? This administration is going to be filled with murder. And I know that's not what their intention was, but when
Right.
you put a song like that, a piece of music over it, that's all I'm thinking about, and realizing how little did they understand it. And then, of course, there's no sooner that I'm writing a note about that, then they open up, she's coming out of the plane to Billie Jean from Michael Jackson.
Yes.
who, amongst other things, it's pretty credible that he was a pedophile.
She is asked at one point who her favorite musical artist is, and she says Michael Jackson, and then there's another little humanizing moment of her in her motorcade singing along to Billie Jean, but she doesn't seem to know any of the words.
Yes. And again, it's not lost on me that it's ironic. It's just ironic that this person who's more known now, but circles for the fact that, look, whether or not we don't have we weren't there. We don't have cameras that this guy did anything to these little kids, but we do know he's been said he liked to sleep in the same bed with little kids. And we now know that's wrong. Okay. And so it's just weird. Believe me, we're going to get into more of this music as we go along. But it takes, after just like the first 20 minutes, and all it is her going over these stupid, mundane, and pointless details for these inaugural balls, which is shocking that this is what the movie was about.
That's 90% of the movie. That and the motorcades you mentioned, but the movie fetishizes the motorcades so much with the drone shots. There's like one motorcade sequence after another with this rock music and flashing lights and just the whole to-do about her traveling from one part of town to another.
Do you think that they think that this is something that their supporters who watch this will think is cool?
I think that they think Melania will think it's cool, and therefore Trump will think it's cool, and that's really the audience they're making this for.
Maybe, because it's so, again, I'll be honest, right? If someone is being honest with themselves, okay, I know this guy's got millions of supporters still. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I think he's lost some in the past year because they've seen what the administration is really about, and it's too late now. But I can't tell you a single person, I don't care who you are, maybe outside of Donald Trump and Melania Trump, and I'm talking the rest of his family, there isn't a single person alive who could watch this movie and actually say it was good. And if they did, you'll know it's like a litmus test. You know they're a liar.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I tend to think that there are some people who would.
No. They may be really insane, but because it's boring. And people, even if they don't want bore, this movie would bore them to tears because they can't even these aren't people that could analyze the movie the way we're analyzing it now.
Yeah, you're right. It would be absolutely boring, even if you were interested and a big supporter of her, and you're like, I love Melania. She's such a great, classy first lady. I still think you would be bored with this movie.
And of course, now it takes about 22 minutes. We finally get our first hint of the president-elect, Donald Trump. He calls her on the phone, and there's a couple interesting things there. One, he doesn't sound very good. He really's gotten old, and he just sounds a little weak and not 100% lucid. And the other interesting thing is you get the real sense, you get the real Melania. She can't wait to get this frickin' guy off the phone.
Mm-hmm.
She's basically like, and she calls him Mr. President, which is really weird, right?
It's very weird, yes. Every time that there's a scene with the two of them, there's a scene where they're like being prepped for what they're going to be going through the next day. He just looks so miserable and angry and hateful in every shot that he's not supposed to be smiling. Everything else, when he's sort of quote unquote off camera or in more candid, he just looks miserable.
Look, not that I don't think it ever was like a jovial guy, but I mean, clearly something's happened. He's a little slouched, slumped. He's got like this weird stance, and his voice isn't that great. And like, there's a time, and we'll get into that too, because I got notes on it. He slurs his words a little bit. Yes. Pretty noticeable. It feels like the documentary crew was doing everything that's possible to include him as little as possible, because there's no way he comes off good at any candid moment, because he's not the same guy. There's something wrong. And that's another thing that, again, when you're trying to put out a piece of propaganda to sell a certain vision, it doesn't look good when you can clearly see that there's something wrong with the guy. And that's what I got. I mean, I'm not because I'm not a supporter. Something's not right.
Yeah, something's not right. No, he just looks off. He looks like he's not he just looks miserable all the time. He looks miserable and angry. And there's another part of this movie that really caught me, which is that during this few week period, Jimmy Carter dies.
Oh, I'm glad this was in my next notes. There are two real world events that happen in this movie to
Yes.
remind you, and the response that we're given in the movie is very interesting. One, as you
Yeah.
said, President Carter's funeral, which that means they're going to have to attend, and you get the sense that it's more annoyance now that they have to be caught up in going to this and
Yes.
making appearances. And it also overshadows, the coming of Trump's second term, so they don't like that. And no sooner does she's like, oh, a great man, President Carter has died. Oh, and it reminds me of how sad I am about my mother who died a year ago. And then we switch into her grief over her mom. And now Carter's
Yeah.
It's like he was used as a catalyst.
He was used as a catalyst to then try to humanize her again, but then it doesn't. It has the reverse effect because she only cares about herself when a former president dies. It's all about how her own grief about her mother, and it goes on and on. There's 5 minutes of her grieving about her mother in response to Carter's death, and it has the reverse effect of humanizing her. It makes her actually look cold and selfish.
Well, then she goes to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York
Yes.
City, right?
Oh, yes.
And to light a candle. And it isn't about Carter anymore. It's now about her mom. And then over the soundtrack, they're playing Aretha Franklin's, a gospel, so a very famous version of a song from Aretha Franklin. I'm like, Aretha Franklin was somebody who fought for civil rights in the 60s. And this is an administration hell-bent on removing well-protected rights.
Yes.
It's just, it doesn't work. And then she comes out of it and there's it feels like a weird, unusual line of supporters in the group.
Yes.
And I couldn't help but think that these people were paid to be there. And that's very cynical of me, but it didn't feel real.
Yeah, no, the whole movie feels like, I mean, at no point does she interact with anyone that she doesn't pay.
Yeah, right. It's all transactional. She doesn't seem to have any real friends.
Yeah, she has no friends at all. It's all people that she pays that are her underlings. And at one point she says, the great thing about these people is not just that they're working on my dress, it's that they're serving their country. And it's yes, they are fitting. This is their service to their country, and how much they love America is shown in their fitting of your dress, which she obsesses over to the point where it's so vapid that she cares this much about a dress and so little about anything of any substance. It's just a horrible indictment of what a shallow and evil person she is.
See if you can remember what the next big incident is that gets a very brief mention, and it also does not. I wouldn't have included it only because of her husband's administration's response to it was so poor.
I don't remember.
The Pacific Palisades fire.
Oh, yes. Oh, that does get, yes, you're right. That does get some attention.
Because she's sitting there stone-faced and goes, I am devastated by what I am seeing. And yet her husband's administration has done nothing to help these people.
Yeah. So she just really, I'll just say it. She just sucks as a person.
I can't remember. It's maybe I've already, yeah, we've already missed it. This is the only part of the movie where I laughed out loud.
Uh-huh.
Is she does this thing, and it's so set up, it's so fake. She has this interview. She's going to need to have, a staff for her own little administration when she comes to power. So there's this fake interview where they get the whiter than white Christian girl all dressed up in sort of this Fox News approved attire, this power white Christian girl suit, and she's got the cross around her neck, and she's sitting across from Melania, and it is supposed to be this job interview, but clearly the person's got to have already been hired.
Right.
And it's such a bad piece of cinema. And I couldn't help but think of this scene in Boogie Nights when Amber Waves is now like they're shooting the first kind of porno movie. Oh, what's his face there? Marky Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
And the whole premise is that she's behind some desk and he's trying to audition for something, and she just sticks out her hand and she goes, "You've got the job." And that's exactly the moment where after this like meaningless exchange, Melania sticks out her hand. She goes, "You got the job." And it is so bad. And I couldn't help but think of it. And that's what it felt like. This whole thing felt like a bizarre pornography movie.
It is pornographic in a lot of ways. It's like lifestyle porn.
Yeah, well, it did. It feels like like an updated version of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Yes.
And now this is where the film, I think, in two areas, it goes extremely propagandist.
Yeah.
Very blatant to try to score points. And it seems very manipulative. And I saw right through it. And the first is we get this Israeli propaganda.
Yes.
And it feels very set up to have a payoff. So there is a person who was one of the kidnapped people
Yes.
from the Hamas,
An Israeli citizen that Hamas kidnapped.
Keith Siegel, and she meets with the wife. And it just feels like it was a setup to have a bookend, which I was like, oh, well, I know that, again, I have the benefit of time since this came out, is that, the hostages were all released, the ones that weren't killed. And I'm wondering, I had to look, I was like, this guy, I bet you he's alive. And they chose this because, you don't even know if this was actually even filmed during that time. And that's how distrustful I became of this documentary. And there's a postscript at the end where 13 days after the inauguration, Keith Siegel was released. And so he was one of the first batches that got released.
Right.
And that the documentary pretends that Melania was instrumental in his release. So is now even trying to make her a hero.
Yes.
So I found that a little offensive.
Yep, definitely. And it's weird when the film does sort of take those little moments to acknowledge that politics exist, because it really, for the most part, ignores the politics.
Right. It's not, again, it's mostly about these, like her deciding that she's got to have her bolero hat, just her matador hat, just so. And then there's this awful other snarky thing that I think was probably the most real moment in the entire thing. And that's where some of Melania's white girl handlers are fielding requests from different reporters who want to talk to Melania about her Amazon deal for this documentary. And after they get off the phone with whoever this reporter is, they are very, very snarky and like, we're not going to totally honor their request. They're just going to be mean to her. And it was just like, this seems very on brand for what goes on in the people that are working in this administration.
The whole movie is very on brand. I think, that it doesn't feel like an aberration. It feels like it's totally fitting with the kind of people they are, the kind of politics they have, the kind of lifestyle they have. It feels, in all its obfuscations and lies, it's actually, there's something quite honest about it.
Yeah. And then she meets with the Queen of Jordan.
Yes.
To talk about human rights. And I don't know what Jordan's record is, but it doesn't come off very well to me anyway.
Yeah, and she's also always talking about cyberbullying is a big problem. And it's like, if there's one word to describe Trump's social media activity, cyberbullying would be definitely up for grabs there.
Yeah, well, we're probably cyberbullying right now if we put this podcast out, I suppose. And then, again, it's about 55 minutes, okay? So only halfway through this travesty before we actually get any footage of Donald Trump himself.
Yes.
And he looks tired and withdrawn. He is not really that bombastic pillar of strength that he brands himself as. And he's in this meeting. Here's what he's concerned about. He's concerned that that the NFL has some football championship game on the same day as his inauguration. And he acts as if it's a conspiracy against him.
He actually says, I think they did it on purpose.
I believe he thinks that because this is a guy who really, it's like sad. I'm like, oh my God, like you watch this and you're like, wait a minute, this guy's going to be the president. Oh my
Yeah.
God. And even this is where I don't remember the word he slurs, but he says something and it's like a slurred word. And you're like, oh my God, he doesn't even know how to, like, his brain's not processing what he wants to say properly. And that's a little concerning.
It's a little concerning, and that was over a year ago.
Exactly. And he's very focused on the numbers. Originally, for like the parades stuff, they're telling him that there's going to be 1 million people there, which he seems to like. You also learn from Melania, and I think this is a humanistic moment. Look, I'm going to give her a little couple of points. She's worried about her son, Barron. Barron doesn't really seem to be wanting any part of this, and he's afraid of being assassinated. So he doesn't want to get out of the car. And, I know there's some people that don't believe that that assassination attempt on Trump was even real. They think it was fake. I like to think it was real.
Yeah.
But, imagine if you're like his kid and it turns out, because when you do see Barron on screen, the kid is huge. He's super tall.
He's huge.
He's 6'9", it turns out. And that's kind of a curse, right? Nobody wants to be 6'9". So of course he's being afraid of being assassinated. He's the tallest person around. He's scared. I wouldn't blame him. Then at one point, this is again, I don't know who's picking the music and what they thought, but it's like you can hear lyrics that say something, and maybe to a narcissist it sounds one way, but it's not what the intent of the song was. But they put up Tears for Fears, Everyone Wants to Rule the World. And I'm like, what? What? Somebody's punking somebody. Like somebody thinks this is funny and they haven't been caught or fired yet.
I doubt that. I think they're actually just that dumb.
By the way, this is a little joke. When I first saw Barron Trump, I felt bad. I'm like, he looks like Cousin Greg from Succession.
He does.
Now, see, this is where it sounds like we're being mean. We're picking on poor Cousin Greg. I mean, poor Barron Trump. Anyways, we finally are working our way slowly through the events that lead up to the inauguration.
Yeah, and then the inauguration itself gets a full 20 minutes.
Yeah, but one of the things they do, and this is, to me, a disgusting political move that now, over time, like everything else, has backfired. They attend at Arlington National Cemetery a dedication service for service members that were killed during the evacuation of Afghanistan. And there was a suicide bomb that had happened at the airport, killed like 15 service members. And this is obviously staged and set up so that Trump can kind of try to win points, I guess, to remind us of the failures of the Biden administration, which of course everybody knows that the way that the Afghan exodus happened was a lot initiated by terrible moves that Trump made at the very end of his administration.
Yes.
But that's neither here nor there. I'm going to give them this, okay? Like if they want to make this political statement here and try to remind their supporters who watch this movie, well, then don't have the timing of this hit streaming right as you like send off American soldiers to a war in Iran, where now at last count, we're almost up to that amount of dead soldiers.
Yeah.
And there'll be more. So again, it's such a weird, it's a move that was designed to create some propagandist points, but you lose those points.
But I don't think that they see it as losing those points. I think that this is all a win for them. Everything is great because every decision they make is the right one because they made it.
Well, yeah, because the next, cue up some more music as they get hit ready these inaugural parties. Got to put that Midnight Express, Giorgio Moroder music. I mean, I was like, you're putting the head song from Midnight Express, the movie about the kid who caught smuggling drugs and gets put into a Turkish prison. Like,
yep,
like
absolutely.
I think behind every musical selection and think, what are they doing here?
I really think that they just don't know. They're like people who listen to Born in the USA and think it's a patriotic anthem.
And then, of course, you're seeing the smugness in these crowds at these parties, and you're seeing all of the creepy characters these billionaire characters that we've come to know over the past year.
The Epstein class.
It's the Epstein class, and that's the whole thing. I watched this movie, and I'm watching and scanning around, and I couldn't help but think, I wonder who in this room is in the Epstein files.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, you're thinking that, because underneath all the glitz and glamour that this movie is projecting, underneath it all is just rot, just moral rot.
We get more of Trump saying whatever he says, but he just comes off, honestly, like a crass old asshole.
Yes, he does.
Like one of those old white guys that just loves the sound of his own voice, and he thinks he's funny, and he's kind of like an aged Michael Scott from The Office who just never learned anything in life. Like he just sounds really awful, and it's just kind of sad.
It is kind of sad, and it would be really sad if they weren't causing so much damage in the meantime.
Yeah, and then you see like J.D. Vance in there, and he just looks like a villain from The Boys, like Homelander Jr. or something. And this is what you're seeing, that like maybe if the documentary had come out the day after the inauguration somehow, it wouldn't have seemed as bad at the moment.
Yes, it sure seems bad now. And I think, this film is going to be studied in the following decades, because it captures a time through a very specific lens that is so biased and so slanted that what we end up with is something that is detached from reality.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's certainly detached from reality. I don't remember whether she says this or whether he says this, and talks about, I think she thinks that his biggest, proudest legacy, maybe he said it, is being a peacemaker and a unifier. I was like,
yes.
What? A peacemaker, a unifier?
Yeah, that's the scene where she's helping him out with the speech, and she presses to use the word peacemaker.
She even says that she couldn't wait for the inauguration to be over, like to get all this, and she kind of like wants to get back to her regular life. And you really do get the sense watching this that their entire relationship is just transactional, and that when this part is over, she will go back and only see him when it is absolutely necessary for the two of them to be together in public.
Yeah, when it's part of the pageant that they're putting on. Otherwise, they spend no time together. It's only when they have to shake hands and wave.
I mean, and again, I mean, like they don't seem like they have anything in common.
No, not at all. There's no relationship there. It's purely transactional and for show.
During these inaugural ball things, and it's not music that was in the ball. It's music that they put overhead.
Yeah.
And again, she supposedly, I had to look it up, she supposedly approved all of this music.
Okay.
Again, I think someone is having a bit of a laugh and sending a coded message. They use Rossini's The Thieving Magpie, which, of course, you and I know is very famous for being in Clockwork Orange.
Yes.
At the beginning, when Alex and his three droogs are fighting Billy Boy and his band of bandits as they are trying to rape a woman behind the scenes of a derelict theater, and then they break out into a fight. And so I'm hearing Clockwork Orange, and I'm thinking, we've got this room full of Epstein file guys, and it just seems like somebody knew and somebody was putting this in as a lark.
I wish that's going on. I would love to find out that was the truth, and that it wasn't just that they're really just this ignorant.
Teal, I'm going to confess something. The only reason why I've definitely, after watching this, agreed to still do this is because I want to be the one to make the point about these music songs so people can't watch this and not think about it. Because as I am with my notes, and we're getting close to the end of this, I had with 21 minutes left now, I was really wondering how I was going to get through those final 21 minutes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was brutal for me because the inauguration ends and then there's another 15 minutes of I don't know what.
Well, I was thinking, okay, 21 minutes left. Maybe there'll be one of those Marvel credit sequences where there's 10 minutes of credits and then I can get out of this earlier. So I was hoping. But there is another one more big music cue that just made me feel like somebody was either being a real hilarious dude or Melania is so clueless and doesn't understand how it makes her. But Melania had made this big fuss about this stupid hat to wear at one of the balls of the inauguration. And it looks like a Matador hat. So what happens during the scene when she's wearing it? Someone's playing Ravel's Bolero.
Yes.
And
of course.
To me, it comes off as you look like a clown. It's stupid. It's a dumb hat.
It is a dumb it's a dumb hat. Yeah, and she really thinks, the hat is really one of the most important things going on in her life.
It was, I guess, very, very cold during Inauguration Day. However, under normal circumstances, that wouldn't have stopped anybody. They would have still had the parade. However, I think the reality is there weren't going to be a massive crowd of 1 million people. So what did they do? They moved it into the Cap One Arena. And
Yes,
what they try to stage very carefully, even though if you really look, you can see the editing of this, the scenes is to show that they couldn't even fill the Cap One Arena.
right.
I looked it up. The Cap One Arena fits 21,000 people.
Okay.
That arena wasn't even filled to capacity. They couldn't even fill 21,000 seats in that thing for the
Yeah.
inauguration, though they made it seem like it was as busy and full as they could. And I thought that just tells you everything.
It tells you everything, which is that these people are putting on a show that they think everyone else loves. And in fact, we don't love the show.
No, but they play another song, and they play James Brown's "This Is a Man's World."
That's right.
But of course, it wouldn't be nothing without a woman's loving arms, and that I guess is Melania. So yeah. And again, I really was left with the feeling of how silly and pointless all of these
Yeah.
balls are. And I'll be honest, I don't care which president it was. I would never knowingly or without ulterior motives watch a documentary about any presidential inauguration. It's just not interesting to me. I don't care who it is.
No, you're right. There's really, I'm thinking about, documentaries like War Room.
Well, that's another D.A. Pennebaker. I mean, he could make little moments seem very interesting. He just knew how to get in there and get real.
Yeah.
And I don't think, though, I think D.A. Pennebaker would have been great, right, if he was filming this. But he would never have done it because he needed control, not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and this thing is really an hour and 45-minute commercial and for nothing.
I thought I was done with the musical cues,
Oh,
and I'm not because I forgot about this one. And again, I think that filmmaking, because again, it's Brett Ratner, okay?
yeah.
I think they thought, oh, this is cool for cool's sake, and that they were making a cool homage. There is a scene where the two of them, to get to, I don't know, the entrance of one of these balls, that Trump and Melania have to go through all these back corridors
Yes.
and go through the kitchen and stuff. And of course, it reminds you of Goodfellas. So they play the same piece of music that they played at the Copacabana scene when they're going through the back rooms to get to the Copacabana room. And they play, "And Then He Kissed Me."
Yes.
All right. But I'm thinking instead, not only is this just juvenile, but Goodfellas. It was about criminals.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who runs the country like a mafia king.
You're starting to convince me that maybe there is some irony going on in the musical selections because this one really tips the hat, I think.
But I'm very confused. She approved this. So I mean, like, you wonder if these people really can't see themselves for who they are. Or maybe this is the joke, is that they want everybody to say, yeah, we know we're the bad guys and we don't care. I don't know. It's so weird, though.
It's hard to know because I think she actually believes that this documentary is meaningful.
Well, I mean, it's trying to sell the image of this first lady doing something. And when she shows how, like, she looks at the little finer points of her dress or the way the settings are, it's like, oh, yes, look at me, I'm in charge. But it really doesn't come off as I think she thinks it does.
No, it doesn't, because the stuff she's worrying about is so trivial that it doesn't feel like she's actually in command of very much at all, even though that you're right. It's supposed to show us that she does something and she's a strong, independent woman who has exacting standards and dominates the people who work for her, but it comes across as pathetic.
If we can go back into the early 1960s, there was a time when television was new. The country didn't really know what went on inside the White House.
Yeah.
Most of them didn't even, know what the White House looked like inside. And this is where Jackie Kennedy invited America in. And she took them through a tour of the White House. And at the time, it felt very glamorous, and it did create a new image, and people fell in love with Jackie, and it worked as a very good piece of propaganda.
Yeah.
But things aren't the same now. Like those same tricks don't really work. People don't, I think, care. And certainly, look, administration one of Trump really helped to reduce people's feeling that the president was somebody to respect. He doesn't show
Yeah.
respect to a lot of American people, and even more so now. So it's really hard to give this office respect. And Melania, again, I'm struck by the fact that she is an immigrant. And if the administration said, you know what, we are a nation of immigrants and we support immigrants and we're going to do policies to support immigrants, then I think she would come off in a new light because she
Yeah.
could be part of that. But instead, it looks like I'm an elitist who had this very wealthy benefactor who helped me when I was a model coming to the United States. And then I got citizenship and here I am. And then I've landed Donald Trump. And so I had this rich, successful life, and tough to all of you immigrants who can't seem to get that, I guess.
Yeah, that's really what it is the rest of you are a bunch of suckers and losers, but I did it. I managed to get a billionaire to support my lifestyle.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that her face shows almost no emotion. So even when she says these things, which most of them are off camera because she's just narrating, it like, again, she's saying things that sounds like she supports immigrants and equality and all of this stuff.
But she clearly doesn't.
But the rest of the administration doesn't. She has obviously no influence on her husband whatsoever.
Yeah, except for that peacemaker line.
Yeah, he's quite the peacemaker.
Oh, man, yeah.
Either she is lying on camera or in narration and that she doesn't believe any of this, or she literally has no influence over her husband, where you'd like to think that your partner, your wife, would be someone that could influence you, because if she did, he would not have policies like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think I kind of think that she's just lying.
I honestly do not know what to think. I was left. I really don't know that she's lying or not, because I don't think she really has much of a relationship with this husband. I think it's transactional. She lives her own life, and this is the arrangement, and she's probably just waiting the days till this guy keels over, and then she just can have like the money, I guess.
Yeah, then she can just have the money and and live her life in peace, because being married to this guy is just one crisis after another. This thing is a travesty. It's a nightmare. It's a traumatizing experience. I don't recommend it for anyone. I would rather watch more Nazi propaganda than watch this again.
Well, I mean, at least Leni Riefenstahl could compose a shot, and
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it looked great, and which is more than I can say for this. Just because, I mean, here's the thing: is you had two noted cinematographers on this thing, Dante Spinati, Oscar nominee, and then you had Jordan Cronenworth, the son of the famous other Cronenworth guy, and he's done a lot of stuff. And so, this thing has this, like, again, it's over slick. That's not what you want almost in documentaries. You don't want it to just look too glossy.
It looks like a perfume commercial. It's so well lit and everything's glossy and beautiful and gossamer, and it looks like a commercial, not a documentary.
Well, yeah, because when you have all these elaborate shots and you have, these overhead drones swooping down, it breaks that sort of magic elixir of that you're watching something happening in real time. It feels like, oh, well, they had to set all this up because there's too many camera movements and shots, so it feels overproduced.
And it is, yeah. It is. Overproduced is the right word for this piece of cinematic garbage.
This is going to be the longest episode we ever had of fascism on film. And again, it's a special episode where we've got to get on the mic soon to get season 3 going. So, you get an extra episode here. We had a lot to say about a terrible movie.
About a terrible movie. Don't ever watch it. Don't put yourself through this.
I will make one prediction. I do think that this movie is headed for some awards. In a year from now, I think you're going to see it really sweep the Razzies. You're going to get it as worst film, worst director, worst actress, worst supporting actor for Trump, because he's not in it very much, worst on-screen couple, worst on-screen kiss. So I think that it's going to sweep in those categories. That's what I think.
Okay, I look forward to that.
All right, everyone. Well, stay tuned and look up. We will be recording episodes soon, and we'll have another season out to you, hopefully geez, I don't know. I really don't. I don't want to make a prediction, but
Yeah.
we're going to be working on it, and then you will get the episodes. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. This is James Kent and Teal Minton for Fascism on Film.